Welcome back to another episode of the Badass Confidence Coach podcast. Today, Tim and I are talking about the importance of texting in your tween and or your teen's social world. So this was interesting because in doing my research, we don't have little kids anymore, or tweens or younger teenagers. Everybody's launched. Our youngest is 21. So this is just 10 years, past us. We were in it. And wow, has it changed dramatically in the past 10 years of what tweens and teens go through really in their social worlds and what parents are also going through as well. So we're doing an episode on what you can do to stay, as parents, keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in your kids' lives.
So it's actually the importance of monitoring, right? Like being on top of, or just being aware, or at least being semi-conscious of observing
things that parents need to know,
yeah,
and checking in with their kids about their texting and the group chats, the conversation that's happening.
Yeah.
So before we get started, I want to invite you all to reach out to me if you are interested in coaching. I have some slots available, so please don't hesitate. Email me, hello@AnnaMarcolene. Let's get on a discovery call together and see if we would be a good fit for each other for coaching. So I think that, I haven't been saying that. It's, almost always available. There are times I have a waiting list going, but right now I do not. So if you are interested, if you've been thinking about coaching, if there's something you need help with that's in the back of your mind that you just cannot figure out on your own, reach out to me. I would be happy to work with you. If you want therapy, you need to be in the state of Illinois because I'm only licensed in Illinois for psychotherapy. So reach out to me there as well. If you live in Chicago, anywhere in the state of Illinois, I'd be happy to get on a call with you about that too. Okay, so I don't say that enough, and I want you all to know, podcast listeners, I coach all over the world. So, it's not a problem. Let's work together. I'd love to be able to help you and get you to that next level in your life.
Nice.
Yeah.
The other thing you've been doing too is you're starting to jump into going out to companies, right?
Yeah.
It's offering like some, one-on-one, lunch and learns, whatever, for groups and different teams.
Workshops, keynotes. So if you, have a budget for speaking in your company and you've been listening to me for a while, you know that, mental health is my jam. It's what I've been doing for 30 years. I know my stuff, and I think I'm a pretty darn good speaker, and I'm engaging. People like me. So reach out to me in that arena as well about speaking. It's, I really enjoy doing it. I love to get to meet people live. It's just so much fun to put, names with faces and to see expressions. It's just a really wonderful experience for you, who's watching and listening. And for me, being able to impart, the insight and the wisdom that I've gleaned from all these years of talking with clients and all the knowledge I have from all the readings. And it's really fun. There's nothing like meeting people face to face. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out to me in that way as well.
Nice.
Okay, so today, here we go. Let's get into this. So texting, group chats, it is the way kids are communicating. And I think what's very important for all of you to know, if you have a kid in your life, maybe you're a parent, you're a grandparent, these are your nephews and nieces, maybe you babysit, you spend time with the younger generation, it is a part of their emotional well-being. It's that attached to their psychology and their mental health, their emotional well-being is these texting conversations and these group chats. I mean, we didn't have this because it was being on the phone, but I do remember being 12 and 13 years old and being obsessed with being on the phone for hours at a time. I was a typical little young teenage girl, and the phone calls and talking to boys and talking to my girlfriends. I lived for it. It was my social life.
Right. It's what you did. That's
You
cool.
didn't do it, but it's what I did.
I didn't do it as much.
No, you didn't do it at all.
No, I didn't.
At all.
I was outside.
You were a very different kid. You were, you were on the Mississippi River.
I was on the river. Yeah, I was floating down.
You're a tomboy. I was a tomboy too, but when it got to my tween years, my social life became very important.
Yeah.
I love talking to my girlfriends.
Yeah. So for us, like it was a face-to-face conversation in small groups, right? It was that's how it went back.
It
back
was,
in
yes.
our time. It was So it was like you fed off of the emotions of that group. There was eye contact a little bit
Right.
more than today, let's say. You know, you wanted to participate, you wanted to be part of that circle
Right.
versus your thumbs doing all the talking. And if for some reason you got missed or skipped in that group chat, it's more devastating, I think, right? Because you're expecting your comment, your response to be acknowledged, and it might be, but somebody might not have been typing, or they just started to type and they got distracted. You know what I mean? It's like it's
Right.
easier to get like missed, I think.
Right. You know, one thing I was surprised, and I just mentioned it earlier, is that their ability to text and be in these group chats is important to them. It holds as much emotional weight for kids today as face-to-face interactions. And that struck me because, yes, they're having face-to-face interactions, but the fact that it holds that kind of weight ought to tell us as parents, as grandparents, as just, maybe not teachers and coaches, because you have to put your phones away when you're at school. Schools are changing the rules around that, and I know kids are still sneaking and getting on them, but that's how important it is to them. So yes, you have to have boundaries around, and that's another conversation, inappropriate, and one that all parents ought to be having with each other and their kids, around boundaries around when you can be on the phone and when you must need to get off the phone, when it is family time or study time. But I think that it's important for us to realize this is a really big deal for them,
Yeah.
and it made me think about, like, a couple of the kids, whenever they were on their phones, and this wasn't that long ago, when they were in high school, and I would say, get off your phone, late at night, or I'm taking your phone away from you, you have to study. A couple of them would sort of freak out on me.
It
And
was devastating, right?
but it took me aback. Like,
Right.
I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa,
Hang on.
chill out. Like, really? I was surprised at the reaction when I threatened, or I did try to take their phone away, or I did take their phone. Like, they flipped out.
Yeah.
Like, okay, 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 what is happening?
Yeah.
Like, they're gonna have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah. Well,
And here it is 10 years later.
yeah. Well, last week I walked out of work and I left my phone. Remember this? I left my
Yes.
phone in my office and I got halfway home and I was like, whatever. And then I was like, oh shoot, I left my phone. Well, I didn't go back because there was something going on. But I just remember I was like on the fence with it that whole night into the next morning. Cause in one sense, I was like so relieved to not have that phone.
Really?
Right? Like this is outstanding.
Oh,
Right.
I would not have felt that way.
Yeah, I
I
was
would
like
not have. I would have been
there's no distractions, there's no temptation to
yeah.
like get sucked into some world of whatever, doing research on this or that, or I
Yeah.
like to do a
Good
lot
for
of
you.
stuff with photography.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, I was like I was a little bit off my game because like I didn't have my alarm clock. I didn't have the ability to check the weather instantly.
Everything's on our phone. You could
Right?
have gone to your laptop
I could have, but like it just
because it was like 20 feet away from you.
I know, right?
I
But,
know.
like, it's in my head, like, I was like, "Oh, where's my phone?" Like, "Oh, I don't have it," and then I was like, "Oh." So I was, like, on
Right.
the fence with, like, is it good or bad? You know, it's
Right.
weird.
Well, that was a forced digital detox,
Yeah,
which, so there you go, Tim. And, we are middle aged, and that's how you felt. And that was what, less than 24 hours of not having your phone. So imagine how a 13-year-old feels without a phone for 24 hours. It's a forced digital detox, which, it feels good. And for these younger kids, it's their lifeline.
right.
We do everything on our phones. Everything
Y
on our phones,
you
our
almost
alarm, our weather, like you just said.
you're forced to now,
Yeah.
right? Like, your business is on your phone,
Oh,
your
yeah.
email's on your phone,
Yes.
the communication with your team is via either Teams or texting, and that's all on your phone. So if you don't have it and there's expectations that you're gonna be responsive or
Right.
at least available,
Right.
like, not having it creates anxiety.
Most emails come to me. You can tell it comes through their phone. Most emails come through their phone. I was really surprised when, this is of 2 or 3 years ago now, my person who was doing my web design, also my business coach, they were looking at the analytics of how people find me. It was 97% looked at me on their phones. It was like,
I'm surprised it's not 100.
and
Yeah,
they both would say that's why it's so important. How you show up on on phones is important. What your website looks like on phones
right. Yeah,
is important as it is. I personally, I still go to my laptop, but there you go. So
yeah.
this is what our what our phones are, what they become today.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, companies have discussions about the web presentation of their website, of their registration software. Like, how does it behave on a phone?
right.
Because the screen size is so much smaller and there's less detail to it. So, but it has to also be super functional, right? Or else it's a big miss. And then that affects the revenue situation. I mean, there's a lot of
Right.
things that could go wrong if you don't really give time to like what your presence is on that particular app. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For your business.
So all this to say, this is the world we're living in. It's not changing. It's only going to get more advanced, especially as we move even more into AI in the next couple of years. It will be with our phones. Okay, so back to the conversation. So your kid, you noticing your kids are always in their phones. I mean, I laugh because I see like my nephews and nieces and everybody's sitting in a family room together, but everybody's looking down at their phones. So they're just sitting with each other, but they're not always talking to each other. Everybody's got their chin down and they're looking at their phones. So encourage open communication with your kids. So they need to know that there is something in a texting conversation or a group chat that makes them feel uncomfortable. They need to know that they can come to you. That's really, really important. So, you know, let them know that you're there to support them without judgment. Because if they feel that you're going to judge or you're going to react, you're going to have this knee jerk, like, what's going on? They're a jerk, or why are you involved in that conversation? It's going to shut them down. They're not going to talk to you. They're just going to, it's going to go, what we call underground, and they're going to deal with it with their friends or in their own head. And they're not going to talk to you about something that you really ought to know about. Okay, so that's why that open communication is really important. Let them build trust in you that you can be, a soft place to fall whenever they need you, and they may need you.
Hmm.
That's really, really important. Okay, you want that open communication, and I think it's really important for us. Next point is for us to balance their need for privacy, but also establishing boundaries in our homes and our families for excuse me, what's okay and what's not okay. Okay. So we need to talk to them about digital safety, what psychological safety via their phones. So how can they feel safe? What helps them to feel safe, and what it feels like on the inside when they start to feel unsafe. Where do they feel that, in their body somatically, in their stomach and their shoulders? Like, really start to pay attention to, how do I feel about this right now? How do I feel about this conversation? I feel icky. Oh, this is cringy. All right, well, pay attention to that. So it's important to talk to our kids about, giving them their privacy, and also in a way, imparting to them the knowledge of, okay, so pay attention to conversations when you feel like they're going awry. And what's that look like for you? Okay. For the younger ones, let's say we're talking maybe 10, 11, 12-year-olds, you may need to check in. Actually, I think you do need to check in on their texting conversations and start to work with them on what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. Okay. I think it's important to discuss guidelines about who they can and they cannot chat with. Okay.
Yeah.
Really, really important. So, there are some weirdos who are and, I'm talking about Snapchat as well. There are some strange, weird people who are getting into, this is more social media, maybe Instagram, I know it's Snapchat. What's appropriate? Do you know this person? What are the non-negotiables for yourself, for your child? Okay. So, establishing boundaries, letting them have their privacy. I think for, 10 and 11-year-olds, it's very different. You can have much tighter reins on them versus a 17-year-old, you're probably not going to as much. But a 13, 14-year-old, you may loosen them a little bit, but you may still want to check their texts, check their group chats from time to time. And if you don't, have that open conversation with them, always reminding them about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, psychological safety for themselves, and trying to help impart psychological safety for others, how you show up on the phone.
Right.
Okay.
Go back to that communication piece for a second, because so I'm thinking of it. I hear what you're saying, and I'm also thinking of it too. Like, so and we're assuming it's an appropriate conversation in this discussion. Let's just assume it's appropriate conversation. It's not with some strange
Yeah.
person, or right. So it's with a friend. It's with a whatever.
A group of kids.
Yeah,
From
yeah.
school.
I think the thing that is never talked about is that there will be moments in life every day where you get into a live conversation with a person face to face, and it is uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right? And you have to manage that. If you're on your phone and you're texting, that literally all you have to do is set your phone down, right? Like you can get out of that conversation instantly, right? And you don't have to deal with it. You don't have
But
to.
not them. They're not doing anything face to face. They're doing it all on text,
That's what I'm
all in group
saying. That's
chats.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
eventually, when you grow up and you get into the business world and the real world, you don't have
Right.
that. You've not worked on that skill set,
Right.
and you are definitely behind the 8 ball at that point.
Well, they're all going to be behind. And I think that, and I'd say that I'm a little flippant in saying that that's the importance of us as parents in teaching them the social skills IRL in real life.
Yeah.
Teaching them how to make eye contact, how to ask questions, how to get curious about other people, how to talk about themselves, with new people or even with people they know very well. Those are the skills that we need to teach them. I think it's great. I know more and more schools are saying, well, because even when our kids were in high school, they were saying you can't have your phones. But then as our younger ones going through, like Samantha,
It's
she's
not the
almost 30.
case. Yeah.
But the younger ones, they're 21, 22. They were on their phones in school because I wasn't good about it because I was a mom and I would text. So I could know where they were in class. I would text about what time you need picked up today or something. And they would text right back. I'm like, okay. So, and I noticed it over the years that, okay, the teachers have really gotten lax on this or they're texting in between classes. They weren't taking their phones away. They just said had phones off.
I don't even know how you do that.
I would get a text right back, like,
Yeah.
be here at 5:30 or 5:15, or can you, or like, mom, like the mom, Grafton with his MOMMMMMMMMMMMM. Can you pick up Dunkin' Donuts for the class? I'm like, no, I'm driving to work. Or, you know what I mean? I would get those at like 10 o'clock in the morning. Mom, can you please go to Upper Crust and bring me lunch? I got that quite a bit. I'm like, how's he on his phone? So it was lax because the girls didn't do it as much, but actually I have to say maybe back then they weren't on their phone as much. I mean, this has really changed at a rapid pace.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So we got to teach them how to have these social skills and how to have conversations in real life. And I think a lot of parents are doing it. And I think a lot of parents are doing a really good job of it. I really do.
I mean, maybe.
I do.
I mean, I work with a lot of kids anywhere between
But
the
you
age
see
of
this age.
Yeah, I
as
live this stuff
employees.
day to day, and especially in the summer, and it's like the complete unaware mindset of like, when is it appropriate to text something, to get into a texting conversation with your boss versus, no, that's a phone call, or that's a real face-to-face conversation. You don't just text, and I'm not going to even throw examples
But
out
they
there.
do, Tim. Listen,
They
I want
do,
to say
but
something.
it's not
Okay. I had a
appropriate.
client. I remember this. I'll never forget this. This is like 2017, 18, way before COVID, because it was in my office. And I remember saying to her, she was like 30. And I remember saying something to her about, I don't know, something like, I left you a voicemail. I think it was about like changing a session or something, upcoming session. And she was like, oh, I didn't like, oh, surprise. Like, I didn't know what you were calling me about or something. And she saw that I called. She had a missed call from me, but she didn't know what it was about. So I saw her on the next session. We talked about it. I needed to switch a session time around. I said, I left you a voicemail. She goes, oh, I would never listen to a voicemail.
What does that mean?
I couldn't believe it was so funny. She looked at me like, she looked at me like, don't you know this? She's like, I would never listen to a voicemail. I don't even know where that is on my phone. I was like, oh my God. I mean, this is like 17, 18.
Yeah.
So I knew then. She said, just text me. And that was interesting because in my service agreement with my therapy clients, now coaching clients are different. Coaching clients, there's different boundaries. Coaching clients, we text all the time. We always were texting. That's a part of coaching, and what they pay for is, the pretty much constant interaction and availability to me. Therapy is very different, and therapy has much stricter boundaries around it. My therapy clients are not texting me thoughts, feelings, musings. In my service agreement with my therapy clients, I say, please do not text during the week in between sessions. If you have thoughts, if there's, something you want to ask me, you need to wait for the next session. As other than a cancellation, I need to cancel a session or I need to reschedule.
Yeah.
And, it was always pretty strict guidelines around that. As the years went by and now we're texting more, everything is text, so, even back then, my therapy clients would email me or leave me a voicemail saying, "Hey, I have to reschedule next week's session, or I have to cancel," whatever it might be, or "I'm gonna take a break." It was pretty much voicemail or emails. And now nobody sends me emails. Not for this. And no one it's not going to voicemail. It's 'cause they're not calling me. It's a text.
Yeah.
Like, "Hey, Ann, I can't make it next week, or can I reschedule?"
Yeah.
And we're all doing that. So it
Yeah.
is the world we're living in, Tim.
It is the world we live in, and I think it's also the industry, right? There's in certain industries, you would have this conversation, have a conversation with an attorney or have a conversation with a doctor, right? You think somebody's texting their doc? No chance. This is
We're emailing through the portal now,
you're emailing, exactly.
or it's like texting, emailing through the okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think the only point I'm trying to make
what's
is
your
that
point in this?
there's no one has defined at what point does something start to turn into a little bit more of a you need to create a paper trail with this message. This is now a little bit more of an important face-to-face conversation. It's a phone call. It's a respect thing. It's like it's not a text. You don't text somebody,
Well,
"Hey, I'm
okay,
quitting
okay,
today." Like,
okay, I don't know.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, I hear that. Okay, yeah, you do get that. You get the text.
Yes, like,
I'm quitting.
really? Like,
I'm quitting. I'm done.
that's not
Yeah.
a phone call for you? That's not a face-to-face for you? Like, you don't even consider that it is. You just text, and
But
then
for that generation, that is how they communicate.
I get it, and that generation will grow up someday, right? And do
So
you
you're saying when you're 28 and you're in the workplace, you can't text, "I'm quitting my job."
No.
I wonder if that's gonna
Not
change.
anywhere.
I know. I do wonder if it's gonna change, though.
It's important to me that the supplements I take are of the highest quality. And that's why for 5 years, I've been drinking AG1. Unlike many supplement brands, AG1 conducts relentless testing to set the standard for purity and potency. I know I can trust what's in every scoop of AG1 because it's tested for 950 contaminants and banned substances, while the industry standard typically only tests for 10. Taking care of my health shouldn't be complicated, and AG1 simplifies this by covering my nutritional basis and setting myself up for success in just 60 seconds. AG1's ingredients are heavily researched for efficacy and quality, and I love that every scoop also includes prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for gut support. So if you want to replace your multivitamin and more, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1.com/Anna. That's drinkag1.com/Anna. Check it out. You will not regret it.
You and I do say often to each other when we hear our kids will tell us about issues with work or something with something with a friend. They'll tell us some drama that's going on. We say it with, your employees. We do say that's a conversation. That's not a text. I've said it to my own clients.
Yeah.
Like that's, you gotta talk to that person. You gotta
Yeah.
call them. That's a face-to-face. That's not a texting conversation. Now, I will say, I don't see kids under 18 anymore. My practice has grown that's no longer a part of who I'm seeing. I saw teenagers for 20 years, 13 to 18. Now I see 18 and up only. I have amazing clients. I love my clients, maybe because they're in therapy. I don't know, like my college age clients, they're face to face or on Zoom with me, making eye contact, having conversations all week long. They know this stuff and they're pretty good about this.
Yeah.
And we will talk about, okay, I'll say, okay, you got to get off the text. You got to call that person, or when you're going to see them again, try to have this conversation. And I'll coach them up on that, or counsel them around that. But my clients, my college age kids are really great about it. And I've learned a lot from them. They've taught me so much about the world they live in today. So I get what you're saying. You make a really good point. I've heard you talk about this throughout the past many years about the younger generation and how, as employees, there are improvements that need to be made, and there's certain conversations you cannot have via text. I hear you. I do wonder if it's changing. I wonder if us older Gen X and what's the generation above us? Baby boomers, if
Babies.
we're going to change
Yeah.
or if they're going to change.
Yeah.
That's what I wonder.
Well, and let me put this all into a little bit of context too. Like we go out of our way, at least in my work, where we're trying to blend and mesh the generations together.
Yeah.
So it's not like we're saying, as somebody that's not a millennial, or pick any generation you want, that we know best. Our way's the right way. Our way's the only. No, we're trying to figure out, how do we mesh? How do we meet in the middle with certain things?
Yeah.
Because I think that that's also a great way to help coach up somebody that's growing up and kind of getting into the workplace, to understand that, like, okay, you need to start kind of letting things go, and you're going to have to go a little bit towards this direction, because that's kind of how the workplace works.
Yeah. I mean, we do love a young person with great social skills, don't we?
1,000%.
Yeah. We love somebody who knows how to have a conversation with an adult, who can make eye contact, who just really, and I say eye contact because I think we've talked about this. I mean, we are really going off on a tangent here, but I think it's important. I think it's an important conversation, but
it all feeds into
it's
it,
all
though.
social skills.
Yeah,
It's social
yeah,
skills and how to show up in the real world. And we can be on our phones a ton, but what you're saying is you still need to be able to function and operate without your phone in your face. You still need to be able to go to work, to your part-time job, to your summer job, to talk to the mom and dad whose kids you're babysitting, and be able to have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
We agree on that.
Yeah.
And that maybe that's another episode, because that's one that we have occasionally around the house here, because we have young people in our lives, and this is a part of our lives.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go on. So back to the conversation around texting with your kids and group chats. I think it's really important for you as parents. Group chats can be overwhelming for people. Group chats, especially when it comes to peer pressure, feeling excluded, and bullying. Bullying goes on in these group chats. I mean, gosh, the things I've heard. And I think it's really important for you as mom or dad, as a caregiver, to talk to your kids about when it's okay to step away from these conversations. There are times when it's okay to just bow out of the group chat because it's getting toxic. And this stuff goes on, and it's like low level. It's like, on the down low bullying or a meanness that's happening. This is on the daily with kids. So talk to your kids about, what does it feel like on the inside of you? Like I said earlier, it's starting to feel cringy or icky, then step away. Just move away from that group chat. Don't participate. Don't be involved in it. Okay. Try, like we said, to put your phone away for even an hour or two. Okay. That's really important. I think it's really important to address the potential for miscommunication that goes on, like we just said earlier.
That's big time.
I know. So texting, it lacks tone and it lacks body language, which can lead to major misunderstandings. So teach your kids to be aware of how their words might hurt or may come across to another person. Teach your kids about how their words can be perceived by others, and teach them also to ask for clarification before reacting to something that may seem hurtful to them or something that's confusing to them. Teach them how to text, "Hey, I'm confused by this. Can you elaborate, or can you just give me some clarification?" And you can find the words for a 12-year-old, or for a 14, 15, or even a 17-year-old of, "Hey, can you clarify, because I just don't want to be misreading this."
Yeah.
You can text that. You can put that in the group chat.
For sure.
Okay. Because I think that you're absolutely right. And that's what you're talking about, is that, it lacks tone. You're not looking at somebody in real life, so you don't see their body language. You don't see if their legs are crossed or arms are across their chest, their head is down, if they're diverting their eyes away from you. You're not getting any of that we all rely on. Those are the other, we call micro expressions. So there's expressions and there's micro expressions. It's the darting of the eyes. It's the head going back, the eyes looking up to the ceiling. You're not seeing any of that. You're not seeing the person's going fetal. They're going in on themselves. You're not seeing any of that. Or they're sitting with their arms back and like the man spread. We're not that. That is so telling to us in real life about what a person is saying to you.
Yeah.
That's what we pick up on arrogance, pick
Yeah.
up on cockiness,
Can
pick up
I
on
give you an example?
sadness. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we had several instances during the summer where some perceived inappropriate texting and conversations were happening with employees as groups.
Mm-hmm.
And we would get copies of like screenshots of text strings, right, that we had to go back and just try and decipher and figure out what's what.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, if you just took it completely out of context of everything else and you just were to read exactly what you're saying, you were to just read words,
Right.
you would be like, oh my gosh, like, no way, I can't believe you said this or that, or you know what I mean?
So there you go.
But
Great example.
but then when you pull people in, because now your job's on the line, because the perception is you just said this or this or this, and when this happened, we would pull people in, we're meeting with them, HR's involved, blah blah blah, and you get the real story, and it wasn't that at all. But you would never know that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and this poor kid's about ready to lose their job for the summer, and it was completely. There probably was like they were
So
probably
what-
too
what-
close to the line of being
That's so interesting.
inappropriate, but like
Yeah.
that it was not coming from a place of bad intent.
So once you talk to the kid
Yes,
and you got the full story,
you're like, oh, okay, I could see that now. I could hear that now.
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
And I'm like, well, that's a great. And so we would be like, okay, well, that's a great lesson for you, right? Like be mindful, and we would
Yeah.
coach them up, be like, be really careful what you write down, because like you can say something, and if no one heard it, did it happen? But if you type something, it's out there, right, for somebody to find.
Yeah.
So just be really
Okay.
careful.
So that's my next point. So my next point is really, really, really talk to your kids about their digital performance. This is really important, and it's dovetailing off what Tim is saying. Remind your kids, remind them that texts and group chat messages can be saved, shared, and screenshotted. If there's anything that I would say probably through this whole episode, this might be the most important piece. They need to understand that once something is sent, it's out of their control. Okay. So encourage them to think before they send anything that could be embarrassing, could look as mean or inappropriate. This is really important.
Yeah.
Okay. Because, and this is, they're young, their brains are still developing, and they lack impulse control. And we send text that, you type something, you send it. And to your point, it can be conveyed or misconstrued in another way. So really, really, really talk to your kids about thinking twice about what you send and how you send it. Okay. You really have to pay attention to that, because text messages are saved, they are shared, and they are screenshotted, and people screenshot all the time, because I've had clients, therapy and coaching clients, who told me about an incident or something with, a family member, their spouse, their partner, their kids, their sister that they're in a fight with. And they've screenshotted, because people do this. They screenshot and they're reading to me like, oh, I can tell you exactly what happened, Anna. Here, let me pull it up. And they read to me the conversation. So it's like, I got it. I
Right.
got it. We don't have that voicemail. Sometimes people would say voicemails, but this is different. I'm like, oh, okay. I heard the whole thing.
Be
That's
careful.
all yeah, be careful.
Yeah.
Gotta teach your kids that.
Yeah.
Okay. Really, really important.
Yeah.
Next one is, it's important to monitor your kids' mental health. Constant connectivity through group chats can lead to stress and anxiety. Okay. I think that's something we're not looking at as much, because our kids, ourselves included, we're always texting, and we're in family ones with our siblings.
Sure.
I am in a one with my siblings, and that's something that I'm in quite often. Sometimes it's just with my sisters, it's sometimes with all of us. Now we've got a family chat with all of our kids, and that's something that we're in there daily. And I think it's really important that with the younger generation, these group chats, they feel like they always have to be in, they always have to be talking, they always have to be saying something. That's stressful for them. And even if you're not prone to anxiety, it can be anxiety producing. Okay. So if your child seems unusually anxious, withdrawn, stressed out, they're different from how you know them, it's going to be helpful for you to ask them if something is going on in their texting conversations or in their group chats. Ask them that. They may be surprised to hear you ask that, but that's great because you have your finger on the pulse of what's going on with them. Ask them. Okay. So, be aware for you as parents, be aware of the online dynamics that are going on. They can negatively impact your kids' well being. Okay. So it's our job to monitor their mental health via their digital lives.
Yeah. Do you? And this is just a question. It's maybe somebody that's listening could throw something back to us, or we can go out into the world and find the answer. But
Yeah.
so you've got these group chats with friends, right? Like as a kid, and like, do you have moments where those group chat that whole group is face to face? Are there moments where they all get
Well,
together?
the group chats usually come about because they're a group and they're a clique in school, they're a baseball team, they're a dance team, they all go to ballet together, they're all theater kids. Yeah, yeah, that's how they usually come
Yeah.
around, or they're kids and then friends in the neighborhood. And then they start a group chat and they keep just adding each other.
Right. Right.
And I have to say this too. One thing I've noticed through my clients who are moms, this is affecting boys as much as girls. This isn't just girls. This is also 10 and 11 and 12-year-old boys.
Oh, absolutely. It
Basketball
is.
teams.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
They're just as much affected
Totally.
by
It's not.
this as
It's
the
not about
girls.
gender.
Yes,
It's not
it's
about
feeling
gender.
left out
Yeah.
because, the group chat, somebody didn't get added because the group chat got too big and you couldn't add another person because there's a limit to how many people can be in the group chat. And now you didn't know that everybody on Saturday afternoon went down to the park to play basketball, or everybody was bike riding or on their motorized scooters going uptown, to, In and Out or to Culver's to get a burger and hang out because you're not in the group chats. You totally feel left out. I mean,
Right.
it is huge how it affects
Well,
them.
and think about the poor kid that gets dropped from a group chat.
Yes, and this happens.
That happens all the time.
Yes.
How devastating is that?
Oh my gosh. Like, my heart goes out to those kids and my heart goes out to the parents. If you are a parent, my heart goes out to you. I mean, this is tough stuff, and it's like I had to deal with clickiness and bullying, especially with one of our kids. We have 5, so we had bad bullying with one, and it was so stressful. I mean, it was, ugh. I mean, it affected my mental health. You're only as happy as your most unhappy child, and that's a saying. It's so, so true. It really affected me. Can you imagine, now if our kids are upset because it's almost a feeling too of not being in control because you can't, like, you're not in the group chat. Like, what do I do to me? How do I fix this for my kid? And I know we're not supposed to fix things, but I'm going to say it. Like, how do I manage this? How do I fix this for my kid? I want them to feel better. What do you do? Do you call the parents and say, call the moms and say, put my kid in the group chat? And you don't want to be like that mom because
That's risky.
I know, because the other
Yeah.
moms may not even know about it. Like, I don't know,
Like,
is
what are
he
you
in the
talking
group chat or
about?
not in the group chat? And I don't know.
And then you've reluctantly been put back in the group chat, right?
and then you're
Maybe.
like that kid.
Yes.
Yes, it's hard. I mean, these are hard times. So I empathize. My heart goes out to all of you. And so I have 2 more points to make. And I mentioned this earlier in this episode. Set boundaries with your kids around screen time. Okay. I know these group chats, with all this being said, I know group chats are of paramount importance to them today. It's also mentally, emotionally healthy to have boundaries around when it's time to disconnect. It's time to disconnect when we have dinner together as a family. Phones are not the dinner table. Hopefully you are eating dinner together at least a few times a week. Phones not the dinner table. Maybe you take their phones away when it's study time. You have more control when they're younger. You can do that when they're, 11, 12 years old if they have phones. You can't do it as much when they're 15, 16, 17. Well, you can. I mean, you can. I didn't do it with the kids when they were around, 16, 17, 18. It just changed. But you got to have boundaries. I mean, we had boundaries around, movie time, family dinners, Sundays, there were no phones, in the afternoons and the evenings. Then they'd get back on them again when they were going upstairs to study, air quote study. They were on their phones. They were. So this is the world that they're living in today. But I do think that you have to decide for yourselves, as each of you as parents, to set those boundaries around when it's okay, when it's not okay. What are your non-negotiables? When is it that they must be off their phones? Maybe they're off their phone when they wake up in the morning and they get their phones like when they're getting on the bus. Like, you're not going to have your phone this morning when you're eating breakfast, you're good and ready for school. because it makes you totally distracted and you forget your book bag every day. You keep forgetting this and that book because you're on your freaking phone, so this is a thing. Okay.
Well, it's tough too because like you're into your world of your education through your tablet, right? Which
Yeah.
on your tablet, you've got
Yep.
basically everything that you've got on your phone.
Yes.
So the distractions, the temptations, everything that could possibly pull you from what you're trying to get done for school or
Yes.
whatever is still right there for
I
you.
know.
Like that's
So
tough.
we're all attention deficit. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all talking today about attention deficit and how it's on the rise. Well, I don't know. I think the whole world is attention deficit because of these devices that we all have. I mean, if you have not seen The Social Dilemma with Tristan Harris, a documentary he did, former Google employee, I follow him. I think he is genius putting together this documentary. He talks about, Stanford Business School. Was it where he went to? Was undergrad or a graduate school, and he talks about how these are the classes that are taught is the behavior psych classes about how to keep people paying attention to their phones, how to keep them on their phones.
Right.
So there's studies and research going into how to keep you on your tablet, keep you on your phone.
Because all the apps and the device itself, they're fighting against what we're talking about.
And
they're
here we
trying
are
to get you get your time, right?
And here we are as parents
It's
trying to get our
interesting.
kids.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have
Those worlds fight each
they're
other.
tough jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So last but not least, it's really important for you as parents to stay informed about the emerging trends. Okay. Group chats, they evolve with the trends, such as new platforms or features. Stay aware of what apps your kids are on. Okay. Stay aware. So you do need to be picking up their phone. You do need to be looking at what they're doing. What apps are they using? What are some of the potential risks? These anonymous chats, disappearing messages. You need to know about this, okay? Because the more you know, the more you can have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the world of your kids, okay? This is going to help you really stay proactive and helping to keep them safe online. All right. So, by you fostering open communication, teaching them that digital etiquette is really what it is, and striking a balance between trust and safety, you can support your tweens and your teens in navigating these texting conversations responsibly.
I like
All right.
that.
I mean, this is such a big conversation and then we could talk about for hours, but this is just a starting off point for all of you as parents, for all of you who are in a position of raising and being around tweens and teens. This is a great jumping off point. Okay. So if you need to go back and listen to this conversation again, I'm going to go through this real quickly. Okay. But this is important for you.
We could do a part 2 or
we could do a part 2 on
like
this.
where we
Yeah.
kind of go into
Okay.
a certain section of this because it's got so many arms, I feel like.
Okay, I'm going to go through it real quickly. Okay, so if you're still listening at this point, you're getting the good stuff. Number 1, understanding the importance of texting to your tweens and teens, how important it is to their social world. Number 2, teach them digital etiquette. Number 3, encourage open communication with your kids around their phones and what's going on in the digital world for them. Next, encourage open communication with them. Okay, keep those lines of communication open, help them to feel safe and that they can come to you. Do not react, respond, take a deep breath, even when you feel like flipping out maybe or something you're hearing so that it's making you upset about your kid. Try not to do that because it's going to shut them down. Balance privacy with safety. Okay, respect their need for privacy, but you also it's your job to make sure that they're safe online. Discuss peer pressure and group dynamics. Really, really important. Okay. Address the potential for miscommunication and how they're texting because there's no body language, there's no tone in group chats and texting. So you got to talk to them about, how they're showing up online. Talk about their digital performance. All right. That's the next one. Remind your child that text and group messages can be saved, shared, and screenshotted. Monitor their mental health. Okay. Always be checking in with them around their emotional and their mental health. Set boundaries around screen time. And it's important for you to stay informed about the emerging trends and what's going on in these phones. Okay, everyone. Hope that was helpful.
Good. I love it.
Yeah. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. If you think this is something that someone else could find value from, please send it to them. Okay. We so appreciate it. And all of your reviews, so appreciate them as well. All right. And don't hesitate to reach out to me if there's something you want me to talk about and Tim to talk about that we haven't spoken about yet. We're happy to do that. Okay. I love everyone.